When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown. When you've got worries, all the noise and the hurry seems to help, I know. Downtown, just listen to the music of the traffic in the city. Linger on the sidewalk where the neon signs are pretty. How can you lose?
To me, downtown is sort of the heart, the center, the image maker for Grand Forks.
We already have a beautiful downtown in downtown Grand Forks. We've got a great head start over other downtowns.
Downtown has always been the heart and soul of this community.
It's really where our community drains its identity from.
It's how new families get to know a community. It's where existing families go to let their hair down and really get to experience the life and culture of what Grand Forks has to offer.
I think that's what people like about our downtown and about all downtowns is their walkability, their great sense of place.
The downtown is essential for a healthy community.
We nurtured that and went through it, and then of course in '97 the flood and the fire hit.
Air Force One carrying the president landed in Grand Forks, it made what was already an historic flood officially an historic event. After greeting dignitaries such as Governor Carlson, President Clinton began his aerial tour.
The town was very divided. Grand Forks wasn't even sure that it wanted to have a downtown after the flood. And if it was going to have a downtown, some people thought that downtown should be moved. I mean, it was a very controversial decision to rebuild downtown.
After the flood of 1997, our city invested $27.5 million into making sure that our downtown was rebuilt.
Mayor Owens at the time and the city fathers, so to speak, city council and the powers that be at that time, Mike Maidenberg, John O'Leary, they got a lot of money from the federal government and turned the downtown around. Our city leaders put a lot of work and a lot of effort, and our business leaders in our community put a lot of energy into making our downtown great again.
We ended up doing a lot of the work downtown. We worked on a master plan following that.
That is why we stayed downtown a second time, because I really believe that a revitalized and rebuilt post-flood downtown would be a very dynamic place, and that's what it has turned out to be.
After the flood, it became even more so. A center point to rebuild and to grow. Not that the whole city is not important, it is. You look at Lincoln Park and Riverside Park, how they've come back.
Downtown's future is written in the opportunities that exist downtown. Investing there, spending your time and resources, and really sharing your passion with our downtown neighborhood.
The Downtown Development Association has many plans for the future, including but not limited to improved safety and maintenance in the downtown area. We really want to work to create a more pedestrian-friendly district with a lot of foot traffic, better for all businesses that are located within the downtown area. We want to create a more family-friendly district with more green space, more places to go for people of all ages, whether that be people that live in Grand Forks or visitors to the area.
It's not the place where you'd put a Walmart or a Target. It's not a big box place. We have places for those. So, recognize who you are. Small scale, unique, sort of destination kinds of shopping and restaurants are a good fit, and we'd love to have them.
Downtown is the heart of Grand Forks' past. It's where we showcase the uniqueness of today, and it's where we dream about our future.
I think a downtown defines the community in the sense that most or all of the businesses down there are locally owned.
And that's what we need. just more of everything, but owner operated, okay?
The people that run businesses downtown also live in town.
We're really focused on making downtown Grand Forks a family-friendly core district, making it the living room of the city, making it something, an area that all residents of Grand Forks can be proud of.
The Grand Forks downtown does define what we are as Grand Forksians, for lack of a better word.
Today, Grand Forks is outstanding. And tomorrow, Grand Forks is going to be the place that young professionals look forward to calling home.
We need people to come downtown, come to events, shop, go to our awesome restaurants we have, but more so we need them to invest.
I like the old town. That's just who I am. I like old buildings, I like old homes, I like original town sites, I like original downtowns.
And we need to keep investing in our downtown, or I can't recruit people to North Dakota and to Grand Forks. It's how we are going to grow.
The more businesses downtown, the more people that come downtown to see these businesses.
So now it's up to us to take the next step and make it even better.
We just want people to join in the conversation about what they would like to see downtown.
This is our home. This is our Grand Forks.
Folks, Grand Forks has a vibrant downtown. Check it out. Visit Grand Forks' downtown. You'll be amazed and you'll have a great time.
And we really need for everybody to go downtown.
I'm Johnny Bonzer, and I need you and want you to go downtown.
Let's invest together and go downtown.
Folks, go downtown. You won't be sorry.
It's bound to be downtown.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming. I am Jonathan Holth. I'm the president of the board of directors for the Downtown Development Association. And welcome to the DDA's first annual Downtown Day. We are hoping that this event can become an annual event, something that we can get together every year to celebrate downtown, celebrate community. We're excited about today, and we're excited about tomorrow. We hope this becomes an annual event. We're going to put it on the calendar every year, so please enjoy downtown today and enjoy downtown for the rest of the evening. We want to talk about how to make downtown Grand Forks the community's living room. How do we do that? Well, for the past year, the Downtown Development Association has been working to build a solid foundation so that we're still having this conversation 5, 10, and 25 years from now. We've studied other successful downtowns throughout the region. We've talked with community leaders and leaders of downtown organizations in other cities. Many of these leaders are here with us today. We've learned a lot, and we're very grateful for the expertise that they have shared with us and for the partnerships that we've developed. We're here today to start a community conversation. This isn't just about the businesses in the downtown area. This isn't just about the people that live or work downtown. This is about Grand Forks. This is about creating a downtown that our residents can be proud of and a downtown that visitors crave. How do we do that? We do that by working hard, we do that by working smart, and we do that by working together. Downtown represents who we are and who we have been. Our downtown is full of history and ripe with potential. It is a reflection of how we see ourselves. It's our city's image maker, and it makes a lasting impression on visitors. It should be where our residents bring their families, their friends, and it's where we as a community should gather regularly. It should be beautifully sculpted, pedestrian-friendly, bike-friendly, family-friendly, full of events, clean and safe, and it is our intention to make it all of those things. We are proud to be a part of a regional and national movement focusing on improving downtown neighborhoods. We will continue to study other communities and what makes their downtowns successful. A few months ago, the Grand Forks Herald published an editorial about downtown with the headline, "GF Can Learn from Other Cities." That headline is absolutely correct, but that should be a one-time headline. We hope that rather than follow trends, that we can set them. We hope that the next Herald editorial headline reads, Other cities can learn from GF. We're excited to have community leaders with us today. Having our City Council President and Mayor here to speak with us illustrates an important trait of successful downtown organizations. A strong and successful public sector and private sector partnership. Both sectors have strengths and limitations, but when they work together, they can accomplish great things. And it should be noted that the check for $75,000 from the city to help launch our organization cleared yesterday, which is nice. We are so grateful that Mayor Brown and our City Council had the vision and the trust to support us as we move forward. I believe Brett Weber, Hal Gershman, and Tyrone Grandstrand are here with us today. Gentlemen, thank you for your support. And we're incredibly excited to welcome Doug Burgum and Kilbourne Group here today as well. We're honored to share the stage with Mr. Burgum and to hear and see his passion and knowledge for downtown. And we're excited you're here. This is your community. This is your downtown. The DDA is your downtown organization. Let's start the conversation today. Thank you. Before I welcome speakers to the stage, a couple program notes. After Mr. Burgum's presentation, there will be a question and answer session. At that time, there will be roaming mics in the aisles, so if you have a question, just raise your hand. We'll bring a mic to you. Just please state your name, and if you wish, the organization that you represent. After that, there will be a social in the lobby, so please join us after the presentation for the social. In addition to that, on your programs, if you noticed on the back of the program is a registration card. Like I said, this is a community conversation. We want to start that today, so we'd like everybody to fill out that card, and you can drop them at the registration table towards the door when you leave. With that, I'd like to talk about our first speaker. Our next speaker is City Council President Hal Gershman. Mr. Gershman has been a huge downtown supporter for many years, and we are incredibly lucky to have his leadership in Grand Forks. He was instrumental in the rebuilding of the Empire Arts Center after the flood, and too many other projects to count. Mr. Gershman is stepping down from our City Council at the end of this term, and we want to say a heartfelt thank you for all of your support, service, and leadership. And don't worry, we will continue to bombard you with phone calls and emails seeking advice long after your term ends. Please give a warm welcome to Hal Gershman.
Thank you very much. And first, I hope that applause was not because I am stepping down. You know, when I saw the accordion players up here, I remember when I was a teenager, I took accordion lessons and I had to give it up because my hair got too curly. And so, well, anyway, welcome. It's wonderful to see everybody and your support for downtown. Charles Dickens wrote in The Tale of Two Cities, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times." In April 1997, I was able to hitch a ride on an amphibious vehicle with CBS News to tour downtown 2 days after the flood and fire. 11 buildings were gone, the rubble was still smoldering, and the air was filled with an acrid smell. Cars were floating in the street, and the river was cold and filthy. It was the worst of times. It was the worst of times. Some compared downtown to a war zone. After all, 11 buildings were destroyed by fire. The infrastructure was gone, and nobody could live downtown. Businesses were destroyed, and many had to relocate to other parts of the city just to continue operating. We knew that to get to the best of times would be hard and take courage, vision, money, and a long time. And some questioned whether we would ever fully recover. I vividly remember the conversations in town about abandoning the downtown and creating a new city center on 32nd Avenue South. It actually had some traction. But thanks to the visionary leadership that stood up to that disaffection for the downtown, a commitment was made to bring downtown Grand Forks back to life. Urban Development Director John O'Leary, who's no longer in Grand Forks, our Finance Director at the time and now County Commissioner John Schmiezek, and former city engineer and now city council member Ken Vian were the tri-chairs leading the recovery. Members of the city council, most notably the president at the time, Doug Carpenter, Dwayne Hafner, Gerald Hammerlick, Ann Sandy, and others, took the slings and arrows as people questioned their wisdom, vision, and their motives. And the money, of course. They, along with the other city council members and Mayor Owens, decided to commit $27.5 million to the downtown restoration and redevelopment. There were other private, public, and nonprofit commitments as well. The Grand Forks Herald, under the leadership of the then publisher Mike Maidenberg and then editor Mike Jacobs, committed to rebuilding an architecturally significant building and staying downtown. They were the first, and that turned some heads. Former Governor Schaefer, who was an incredible supporter of our recovery, committed state money and his personal support to building a new, beautiful county office building. And the donors of the Empire Arts Center pledged to finish the remodeling, which began in 1996 and was literally washed away in the flood. Over $1.1 million in private donations were raised for this beautiful building. Where I'm standing right now, the water is probably 4 or 5 feet above my head. Some people would say, well, that would have been a good thing, Hal. But those 3 public, private, and nonprofit investments changed the attitude of the public. And therefore, many businesses and professional offices began to take a fresh look at downtown. Let me tell you a quick story. Scott Steiner, who is retired from Brady Martz, was my accountant. And at that time, Brady Martz moved out to the Bremer Bank building. And I remember having lunch with Scott, and he said, you know, God, this is really great. I get in my car, he lived on the south end, I take a left on 32nd, and I'm at my office. It's just terrific. Well, about a month later, we went for lunch again, and he said, Hal, he said, can't do that anymore. I said, why? He told me it was convenient. He said, whatever we need, we have to get in our car and go somewhere. And that's not what it is downtown. We want to go back downtown. Soon to follow suit downtown were Sanders. I know Kim is here, one of the greatest supporters of our city. Widman's Candy, Bonzer, Johnny, glad you're back here downtown, and many others. Alaris Financial, Brady Martz Accounting, and the Cameron, Maddock, Olson, and Larson law firm all agreed to lease space in the planned corporate center just next door to the Empire. Downtown was on the way to recovery. Just imagine had these people and businesses not made those decisions. So it really was public, private, and nonprofit commitments that got downtown Grand Forks to where it is today. We should all be proud of that. So here we are with the opportunity to take downtown Grand Forks, the vital heart of our city that is now celebrated by all, and begin to create a more exciting and even more vibrant downtown. I'm so proud of our current city council, with the support of Mayor Brown, for committing $75,000 this year to the new Downtown Development Association. I am convinced that this new group of visionary, young, enthusiastic, and committed leaders are going to exceed whatever expectations any of us have of what might be. A special shout out to the Downtown Development Association officers for their hard work and dedication. Jonathan Holth, the president, Matt Norby, vice president, Ann Zimmer, secretary, and Sarah Horak, treasurer. And today is the DDA's official launch. Look around this audience, how many people are interested. There is a renewed excitement about downtown. Something tells me they're going to be successful. And today we have the privilege of hearing Doug Burgum's vision for a downtown, along with some challenges. Doug is by far one of North Dakota's greatest citizens and visionaries. And I've often told people, I don't think I told Doug this, that the 2 great things that happened to Fargo in the last 20 years was Doug Burgum and the Fargo Dome. And I really believe that. So just when you think the best of times are here, they're about to get even better. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hal. Our next speaker is Mayor Michael Brown. The DDA was actually founded after Mayor Brown spoke about taking downtown Grand Forks to the next level in his State of the City address just over 1 year ago. For 14 years, Mayor Brown has led our city and has been one of downtown's biggest champions. We are so grateful for his vision of what downtown can be. It is that vision that we are excited to build upon. Mayor Brown, we are excited to work with the City of Grand Forks for years to come, and we are honored that you are here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Mayor Michael Brown.
Well, I'm glad the check cleared. Well, good afternoon and welcome. What an exciting day. I want to thank you all for being here, and thank you, Mr. Burgum, for being here. We recognize the impact you've had on that sleepy little hamlet to the south, and we're eager to join with you in the support of making all of our towns more vibrant and more valuable. What an important day it is, not just for downtown Grand Forks, but for all of Grand Forks. I'm so proud and pleased with the leadership I've seen over the past year regarding our downtown, the development of the DDA, and the actions that are helping take us even more steps forward on our community's living room. I also want to take this opportunity and reiterate a tremendous thank you to those individuals and businesses who stuck with the downtown in the bleakest of times and chose to rebuild. And that includes Mr. Gershman. Thank you, Mr. Gershman. And to the downtown businesses and leaders who reinvented downtown after the flood, thank you. We all stand on your shoulders. And this year's State of the City theme was Invest. Further, the time is now. Grand Forks is the place. It was simple, but it signifies exactly what is needed in Grand Forks right now. Downtown is the center of our community. More and more, that is less a fact geographically, and increasingly more and more the fact is symbolically, it is the center of our town. As we develop new residential areas, new commercial shopping sectors, and new industrial opportunities, it is downtown that anchors our character and who we are. Let's be frank, whether you're located downtown or not, it is the face of our city. Our downtown is already filled with the best shops and restaurants, galleries, and businesses. It's a beautiful collection of historic architecture and modern green space. It is the place to gather, the place to be, the place to do something special. So on these strengths, we are tasked with investing now, building on the strengths for a downtown that is even cleaner, safer, and more family-friendly, and even more an overall destination for our citizens and people from around the region. We all know how special it is, and we know how much more we can do here. More walking around, more gathering, more public art, more performances, more commerce, more marketing and awareness of these special traits, and more cohesion and a voice of those who call downtown their home and place of business. I also appreciate the model of the DDA that demonstrates a successful public-private partnerships. Further, I appreciate that the city is a partner, but to be clear, not the principal. We want to encourage more endeavors like the DDA, where we have active, smart, engaged citizens strive to make a positive change and call on the city not to do it for them, but to be a partner. To all of you, thank you for being here today. Please find your way to invest or continue to invest in downtown. Get involved, be involved, and stay involved. It's your engagement that moves us all forward and will take our downtown to the next level. So thank you. I look forward to the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Now for our featured presenter. Born and raised in Arthur, North Dakota, Doug Burgum has always been driven by a strong vision and powerful dream. Whether it be betting the farm on a fledgling software company or revitalizing a building that others believed to be a lost cause, Doug has taken the risk, put in the time, and enlivened others to help make North Dakota what we all know it can be. Through his endeavors, Burgum has created, built, invested in, and sold companies that generated more than $5 billion in shareholder value. Burgum is passionate and optimistic about the future of our great state, grateful for what we have already accomplished, and confident that his work will be the catalyst for change. In 2009, then North Dakota Governor John Hoeven presented Doug with the state's highest honor, the Theodore Roosevelt Rough Rider Award. Among his many accomplishments and roles, Doug is founder and chairman of Kilbourne Group in Fargo, North Dakota. Kilbourne Group works to be the catalyst of inspiration and action for vibrant downtown communities through thoughtful leadership, smart growth, and the revitalization of urban cores. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm Grand Forks welcome to Doug Burgum.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Hal. Thank you, Mayor Brown. It's fantastic to be here today with all of you. Mayor Brown said he was looking forward to seeing the presentation, and so am I, because I've had such great help on this. Some of this is going to be new to me also. So we'll get to enjoy it together. The place I like to always start is with a place of gratitude. As Jonathan said, I grew up in Arthur, North Dakota. Some of you may know that, northwestern Cass County, small town. The life opportunity that I've had to live, it's sort of remarkable, even to me, going through it. And I'm incredibly grateful for the friends that I've had along the way, the family members that have supported me, the people that have invested in the crazy dreams that I've had. And that hasn't changed now. I'm still getting a chance to live in what I think is an amazing life and an amazing opportunity, and to do it, on this point in time and this point in history on this planet. It turns out this is a pretty okay planet to be on. There's worse. This one's good. And on this planet, actually, this is an interesting time because there's been more positive things happening in the last 20 years. That we get bombarded sometimes by the negativity of media, but more people have risen out of poverty in this globe, almost 1 billion people in the last 20 years. More cures to major diseases have occurred, more innovations with technology, more advancements in spread, and in spite of in spite of the fact there's still too much conflict on the world, there's actually fewer people killing each other through armed conflict now as a percentage of the population than really any time in history. And so you just have to look at all that data and say, hey, this is a very optimistic time to be on the planet. But then if you're fortunate enough to be in North Dakota, then you can be incredibly optimistic, because if you're going to pick any place on the planet to be right now, this is one of those spots that you would want to be because of all the amazing things that we have and the opportunities we have and the foundation of freedom and free markets that occur in the United States, and the opportunities here that don't exist for many people around the world. I'm sure you all know the stats, but this is not the North Dakota that was around in the 1980s when I moved back here to try to start a software company with some other folks. This is a completely different world. At that time, there was headlines, North Dakota is dying, all the young people were moving out, there was no opportunity for employment. But today, in 2014, we've got all these new jobs that have been created. There's been an effort. There's been rises of states' success, but there has never been a move like on the per capita income from 36th to 2nd in a matter of 10 years. That's a historic move by any particular state. The population growth 3 times what's going on in the rest of the country. That supports all kinds of things, surpluses at the state level, the envy of any of my friends that live in other states that don't have those, and the sales tax, an indication of the economic activity. So if you like the planet and you like the United States, then you got to say North Dakota is a great place to be. And we all think that, hey, it's all driven by the Bakken, but let's also understand there's technology that's happening on the agricultural side of the world too, driving increases in the ability to raise corn further north, soybeans, those kind of things, driving that further up into the state of North Dakota, driving more bushels, driving more margins. And so at the same time, we've been having all the record Bakken stuff happening. We're having record ag income, and then you throw technology on top of that, and it's just a pretty amazing place to be in terms of opportunity. And then in Grand Forks, itself is one of the star cities in a star state, and has got a foundation for building and building forward and doing a lot of great things. And of course, there's good things happening in Grand Forks, and I'm really happy that they weren't happening at 4 o'clock today, because I'd be here talking to myself, I'm quite sure, myself and a couple other Bison fans in the room. But anyway, we're excited about UND's prospects tonight. Would like nothing better for them to take down the Gophers. And does anybody have a current score of the Boston Union game right now? Okay, thank you. I knew that somebody would. Just keep shouting it out if you need to. Through there. Okay, so we have so we got a lot of good things going, and we'll get you out of here in time for your pre-parties tonight. What I'd like to talk about today is urban development and the common good. I think that there's sometimes a understanding that having a great downtown is a good thing for people that are in downtown, or having a strong downtown is good for the businesses or the property owners that are in downtown. But today, one of my central things that I want to transmit to everyone here today is that having a vibrant urban core is not just good for the urban core, it is good for the entire metro area. So what's happening in downtown Grand Forks is great for East Grand Forks. What's happening in downtown Grand Forks is great for the 2 counties. What's happening in downtown Grand Forks is great for the state. And so this is a reason I'll make the case. You guys, come along for the ride. Kilbourne Group as Jonathan said, we created this organization. Today still I spend the majority of my time trying to build and create and inspire software companies around the world, but I've got a passion for that, but I've got a real passion for the work we're going to talk about today, and I want to thank my team. They're all here today. We've had a really fun day touring around Grand Forks today, meeting with businesses, visiting retailers, talking to folks about what's going on, touring the Greenway, and understanding what's happening in Grand Forks, and ourselves trying to learn, because there are a number of things that are positive, that are, as Jonathan said, there's things that are happening here that are getting done well that aren't happening in Fargo, and so we're happy to share ideas and do that. When we say we want to be the catalyst for inspiration and action, we want to be not just a think tank and do presentations like this. We said we want to be a do tank, and so we have done a number of projects in downtown Fargo. I think we've affected 15 historic buildings and that have generated about $70 million of real estate development activity in downtown, some of that in conjunction with nonprofits. We're not going to talk about that today, but just say we've made every mistake you can make in doing downtown redevelopment. We're happy to share that with anybody that's interested in doing it here, because we'd like others to learn from the path that we've paved. And when we've done the work, we've had some basic core principles that we bring to any project or any idea, and that is we start with respect for the past, which includes preservation of what's core is there, but it's not just the building, it's also preservation of some of the attributes that existed when downtown cores were vibrant. We have gratitude for the present, which we certainly have in everything we do, and we are trying to do things that inspire people to think about how great the future can be here. We have challenged ourselves. Has anybody ever seen this book called The 6-Word Memoir? Anybody ever seen that? It's a little teeny paperback, but it's a cool little book, and it has hundreds of pages in it. Sometimes books have that. But each of these pages only has 6 words, and the 6 words are by a different author, and it's someone trying to describe their life or their company in 6 words. And so we took it upon ourselves to say, what would be the 6-word memoir to describe Kilbourne Group? And the 6-word memoir for us is that vibrant downtowns create smart, healthy cities. And again, we'll talk about what it takes to create a smart, healthy city. Grand Forks in 1953, the downtown area was a bustling area. If you look closely in the picture in the lower left of this, you'll see people there. I think it looks like a Rexall drug sign in the back. People have got shopping in their arm, Christmas shopping. The streets are just jammed with cars and activity. There is Christmas decorations that are up and about. And so this is and the reason why this would be is because there is, at this point in time, there's no 32nd Avenue, there's no Columbia Mall. This is the core for business and for activity and for retail for the region. And it's an environment that is, look at the number of people on that street, and I'm assuming this is between Thanksgiving and Christmas, this is December, and it's just jam-packed with people that are down in that space. And you could repeat this scene in Fargo and in any community of this size across America in this time frame. But what happened to those vibrant downtown cores in a really relatively short time, a few generations, but maybe 50, 60 years, they disappeared. Well, one of the things was there was a number of federal subsidies that often, as federal subsidies do, have unintended effects. One was the interstate highway system, which was again designed in the 1950s, and it did have tremendous economic benefits of bringing together our country, creating a network of transportation that lowered transportation costs, and there have been all kinds of studies that talk about how wonderful that highway network system that we built has improved the economics of our country. It's been less reported about how those highway systems bypassed the core downtowns, changed the pattern of development, and accelerated the decline of smaller communities and accelerated the growth of more aggregating people in single areas. And in that case, again, was a sort of a game changer. And I use this single image as to also understand that at the same time there was effective subsidies for the automobile industry and others, and the construction industry, including the way that homes were built and financed, starting with the Federal Housing Authority and others. There's always been in this country, both a love of the automobile and a love of the single-family home. We still today have, mortgage tax deductions for people that own homes. People that rent do not get the same benefits, and so that tilts capital towards home ownership. And there was rules written into the early FFA language that suggested that a home could only get a mortgage if it was located in a residential area, and that was aligned up with this idea of single-use zoning. And so single-use zoning, created these cities, which then became areas that were sort of automobile dependent. Another federal program that happened in communities all over America was the idea of urban renewal. Once the suburbanization started to happen and downtowns were declining, they said, oh, we've got this blight in downtown, everyone's moving to the edge. Let's go down and knock down all that stuff in downtown and make it better. In Fargo, this led to the knocking down of hundreds of buildings in downtown Fargo, converting those into surface parking lots. Our calculation in Fargo is there's 72 acres of surface parking lot in downtown Fargo, including on places like just off of Broadway where there used to be a Carnegie Library. We knocked down the Carnegie Library to create about 60 parking spots. I mean, things that are hard to comprehend in today's world. Grand Forks had its share. Moorhead, Minnesota basically knocked down all of its downtown to create the Moorhead Center Mall in an effort to compete with West Acres. The Moorhead Center Mall today's occupancy is less than 50%. Again, federal dollars coming into cities to try to help them get better. Hal, talked eloquently about the pain and the loss and the challenge that this community faced during the '97 flood, and there are a few cities in the country that have ever gone through what Grand Forks has. I think it's important to recognize that a couple of things about that. One is that the courage and the strength to rebuild and what the amazing foundation that Grand Forks has in its downtown. It's sort of the miracle city. If Phoenix hadn't already taken the name, it might be a good name for, instead of moving the downtown, just rename the city Phoenix. But it's a remarkable thing, and it's something that certainly everyone should be proud of. But the people should also remember that in the fall of 2015, just a year from now, the kids that are entering UND that year will have been born after the flood happened. And so, while it burns in a memory for those of us that were around in the valley in '07 and '09 and a number of other scary floods, there's a generation of people coming that want to live in downtown areas that will have no personal memory of what is so central to how we think or frame ourselves in doing that. So this is an opportunity for us to look forward with this new generation. But to have Grand Forks, which went through the trauma of the downtown, I guess I bring up the urban renewal and the suburbanization for a couple of reasons, is because there may be a nostalgic view that everything was great in Grand Forks, the weeks before, in downtown Grand Forks, the weeks before the flood of '97. I would like to remind people that all downtowns were in decline in the 1990s. This is in downtown Fargo. Downtown Fargo came close to being flooded in 1997 and wasn't. And downtown Fargo in the year 2000 didn't have 11 buildings burned, didn't have a bunch of other stuff, but it was pathetic in 2000. And anybody who was there would realize, how awful it had gotten. Just again, like it's not Fargo or Grand Forks, we were part of a mega trend in the country, seen only here in our country, only seen ever in the United States, where a combination of automobiles and highways and construction subsidization led us to hollow out the core of all of our cities and build new on the edges. So this was the love of suburbia, and again, it's hard to underestimate because it's such a part of our thinking that we rarely understand what an exodus it was. But we took a period of time in 1945 when nearly every home in America was considered part of a metropolitan area, and if you fast forward to the 2000s, of the estimated 132 million homes in America, 68 million of them were in the suburbs. So in a period of less than 60 years, half of America picked up and moved to the edge in pursuit of some vision of a better life. And with that better life included this idea of single-use zoning. But part of the other message I want to deliver today to the citizens of this region and this metro area is to understand that this inevitability of the move to the edge that so many cities are geared around in terms of their planning and their dollars and their investments, so many developers, that are raising money to build more apartment buildings and do the next strip mall, they're doing it with the idea that the move to the edge is never going to end, that the good times are rolling and they're just going to keep right on going. And part of what I'm trying to give a cry out to everyone in North Dakota is to let's wake up and pay attention to the fact that on a national level, all the indications is that the move to the edge is over and it's returning to the core. And the sooner we can stop subsidizing development on the edge, and the sooner we can start, focusing on the core, then the better off and the more healthier all of our citizens are going to be and all of our cities are going to be. This is a great book by Lee Gallagher. Talks in detail about all of the number of things that I'm describing right now about the end of the suburbs. And one of the things that she talks about is that the generation of kids that grew up, that are like the age of my kids, that grew up in the car seat generation, these kids, they're not aspiring to live in a community that's basically a triangle, which I live in a home, and then I get up and I get driven to school in one spot, while my parents drive to another spot where they work, then we drive to another spot where we shop, and then there's another thing called an industrial park, each of those being single-use zonings. And if you build a city using single-use zoning, the top of the page should say, our desire is to build an automobile-dependent community, because you will not be able to live in a community that has single-use zoning and be able to walk the extreme distances that we consider to be normal. And so part of what we're seeing, even in downtown Fargo, where the population in downtown Fargo has more than doubled in the last 10 years to almost, there's like 4,400 people living in the core downtown area, up from 2,200. And those are coming from two sources. One is coming from the young generation, the 20-somethings that want to live downtown, young professionals, and the other is empty nesters that are moving, back into downtown who also want to live in a walkable neighborhood. So on a national basis, again, understand the unstoppable trend from 1945 up through the 2000s was that of the 51 largest metropolitan areas, as clockwork, every year the edges grew faster than the core, the edges grew faster than the core, the edge grew faster than the core, the downtowns continued to decline. The biggest single case of downtown core decline is, of course, Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, Michigan has 78,000 abandoned structures that are still standing. They're going to be spending $500 million out of their bankruptcy fund to just tear down dilapidated structures, and so they're still they're in a, that's a growth business in Detroit, is knocking down old buildings, and so it's again that's an example, and that again and how fitting that was the city that benefited for all those years because of the core of the automobile industry finds itself having created a city where no one wants to live in the core. It's ironic in some ways, but now in the last decade, now we got 27. City centers that grew faster, so more than half of the city centers are now growing faster than the edge. That's not 100% of them, but that's more than half, and that's up from none. And so again, this trend line is moving towards a point where this chart is going to say 100% of the city centers ended up growing faster than the edge, and that's what we have to pay attention to. Another book that describes this in detail called The Great Inversion, everybody moving to the edge and now moving to the back to the middle. And part of that, the move to the edge, the people that lived in the edge were the people that were middle income or higher. It was the wealthy people building the big homes in the suburbs. As part of this great inversion, is you're going to see is the people with higher incomes that can afford to live in the downtown cores are the ones that are going to want to do that. So the inversion is not just bodies, it's also income. Walkable City, another great book about how downtowns can save America. So a lot of good things out there that are on a national trend that we should pay attention to. Why does a vibrant core matter? Well, let's define vibrant first. When we talk about vibrant at the Kilbourne Group, we talk about a number of things. We talk about it being walkable. We talk about it being a mix of old and new. We talk about it being a mix of different income levels. We talk about it being a mix of daytime and evening use. We talk about being safe, and we talk about a level of density that makes it walkable, and we talk about mixed use, which is sometimes a real estate term, but what that means is you have a combination of uses that sometimes are not taking up the shared resource at the same time, the commercial, the public space, the parking, and other things. If you've got mixed use, then you got people that park in those spots in the day and other people that maybe park them at night, and you get higher utilization out of public facilities, and that's great. Because one of the problems with suburbanization across America is that everybody said, hey, we all want to live on the edge, but our jobs are all downtown, and what do? We end up with construction, so what do we do to fix that problem? Instead of fixing downtown, we're going to build bigger highways to connect people from the edge to downtown. And then people sit and spend all their time in traffic, and that's, again, just the wrong way to go about solving that. So if you think about having a vibrant core and then the three drivers of a city in terms of the health of the city, the workforce in the city, and the economics, I want to zip through each of these. Let's start with the economics, which is a foundation of all the thinking at the Kilbourne Group. We want to do things with a design lens, but we also want to do stuff that makes economic sense, because in the long run, economics wins. Economics of cities are driven by two things. They're driven by the level of density, and they're driven by whether or not you have the right appropriate level of mixed use. So let's talk more deeply about that. Let's talk about the importance of density first. And again, if any of you have ever had a chance to travel to the East Coast of the United States, and some of the early Boston neighborhoods would be, for example, or if you've had a chance to travel in Europe, places where people they've lived longer than they have here, because of course when we're here in the plains and we're in a place that has only really been settled for about 130 years, we've had the majority of our planning has been influenced by the automobile. But if you go to a place in Europe and you're in this, you're in the old city, as they would call it, and you spend a day there and you walk around and you go, wow, that was amazing and it was incredible. And part of the reason it was incredible because you were experiencing as a human what it was like to be in a space designed for humans, as opposed to be in a space that was designed for automobiles. And in the United States, we have, the automobile has been the king, and then we do all of our design decisions. There was a time in the old days when you could actually walk across the street wherever you wanted to, but now we know that we have to be trained to go to those things called crosswalks at the end, because the traffic speeds are so high, that could create an issue. In 1923, there were 17,000 people killed in the United States because of pedestrians killed by automobiles, and there was a battle brewing in the country on whether pedestrians or automobiles were going to rule the core of a city. Automobiles won, believe me, and there was even a coalition of automobile manufacturers that invented jaywalking as something that was illegal, and sort of to try to get that into people's mind. Of those 17,000 people that were killed by automobiles in the 1923, over half of those were kids 16 or under. Some cities had parades mourning, the death of kids because streets used to be safe. And again, our response to that wasn't to build walkable neighborhoods. Our response was to, create wider streets and bigger buffers and higher speed lanes and do all that stuff. So again, we're so focused around this, we don't think there's another way. But you have to step back and understand we're the only culture that has done this automobile worship thing and has built cities that way. And it's a really expensive thing to do. We've gotten away from it because we've been such a prosperous country. And why is it expensive? Well, if you start with saying, I'm going to build a street, and then I have to put all the stuff that's underneath it, the sewer and the water, then I have to run get the power and the lights, and then I stick the suburban homes out on the edge, the housing development. But oh wait, I need a new fire station, which means employees, which means 3 shifts times 365 times forever. I need police also in the same way. Some of the older cities in America, they're like Boston, what they pay for their retired police and fire is more than what they're paying for the current one, because public employees often have pensions. And so when you grow and everybody shows up at the ribbon cutting for the fire station, as a taxpayer, understand those people are serving the public in a great way, but that's a permanent cost that taxpayers are going to have to bear forever. And in many of the cities we've designed with such low density on the edges, that the density isn't high enough over the long term to pay for the replacement costs and the maintenance for all of that sprawl. Again, garbage collection, and it's not just the people to collect it. The longer the routes are, for school buses, the longer the routes, everything gets more expensive when people are doing it. And then if you take a look at Boston, which I've used as an example, 48 square miles, San Francisco. How many people have been to either of these two cities? And I mean, how many people thought their experience was relatively positive there because these cities are small. I mean, you got Houston is 400 square miles, LA is hundreds of square miles. These are small because they were contained by water. When you're living in the Red River Valley and you've got a border on one side, then which we can't generally grow into the other state. If you're confined on that side, the metro area can grow on the other side, but there's no barriers, in terms of land mass. So then you end up with this. Which is Fargo, has now, with its latest acquisition of land, 6 square miles, is now past Boston or San Francisco in terms of the number of square miles it's trying to manage. If we throw in the West Fargo and Moorhead metro area, it's 83 square miles, if you can believe that. That's a lot of streets and roads that taxpayers get to pay for forever. Grand Forks, doing a much better job, under 20 square miles. Right now, and if you take a look at the per capita basis, Grand Forks actually has a higher density to start out with than Fargo does. If you do Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo, the density remains almost identically the same. I mean, we add more people with those cities, but the square miles keeps us about the same. So, the higher the density, you're spreading the cost of the infrastructure better than you are when you have less density, because fewer people get to pay for all of the costs of that infrastructure. So keep it up on the density front, Grand Forks. Let's talk about mixed use. I talked about single-use zoning, creating that automobile-dependent existence. This is an example of what single-use zoning looks like in 2013. This picture was taken by a friend of mine over Southwest Fargo or Southwest West Fargo or South Moorhead, and I actually don't know which one it is, and we can't tell. And if you examine it closely, which we have, there's one thing missing. There's a lot of aprons, there's a bike path, there's automobiles present, but in this photo, on an August day, on a beautiful afternoon, there is 0 people walking in this picture. And again, because if there's active kids that live in these homes, they're either in a car seat or in the back of mom's car or dad's car, and they're driving them to practice at some other place, or they're driving them to school, and the parents are driving to work, and then they're going to drive to shop, and they're going to drive to whatever, because this is not a mixed-use neighborhood. This is an example in downtown Grand Forks of a new county building with a supporting parking ramp that's built towards it. And this is one of the things that we're challenging and working with the city of Fargo to think about using mixed use on parking ramps. This is a parking ramp near Island Park between 2 banks in downtown Fargo. It's a 4.5-story ramp. I took this on a, again, beautiful August night, 11 p.m. You can see the high utilization here. Going on. I know I tell my kids, don't text when you drive. They're probably telling me, Dad, don't take photos when you're driving. But this ramp has got good utilization from 9 till 4:30 Monday through Friday, because there's a bank on either side of it. I have asked audiences in Fargo, how many of you have ever parked in this ramp, which was built at big expense to the city? How many of you have ever parked in this ramp and walked to a restaurant? 0. How many have parked in this ramp and walked to shop? 0. How many people have parked in this ramp and walked to their home? And then everyone's like shocked, because what do you mean? Why would I park there and walk to my home? Well, you would if we were building things the way they are in Lincoln, Nebraska, because this is a retail wrap around the bottom, 6 floors of parking, 3 floors of apartment buildings on top. And the business people, that work in downtown park there during the day. They go back to their homes on the edge. The people that work on the edge, come and use the parking, and they're selling each of these spots more than one time. You don't get a specific spot. You just get an opportunity to park in the ramp. And so then you have utilization higher than selling each spot more than once. That improves the economics of the ramp. And this would be an example of mixed use versus example of single use. And maybe the ramp by the civic or the county office building has been built in such a way that someone could come along and build condominiums overlooking the river on top of it, and would be a way to enhance the density that's already here. So that was about the economics, mixed use and density being the 2 things that drive economics. How about health? One of the things that you get when you have single-use zoning and automobile dependency is you get less walking, and it's and of course walking is enormously beneficial for humans. It's something that we were meant to do. I saw one study recently that said that nearly 40% of the healthcare costs that are expected to be incurred in this country in the next 20 years could be eliminated if Americans of the generation that's going to need that healthcare was just walking more. And of course, you pick up the paper every couple days, and there's a story about childhood obesity. And of course, that's interesting that we have that, but even kids these days aren't, it's not just the size of their soft drinks, it's the lack of walking. There's a wonderful tool that just came out in the last couple of years called walkscore.com. It's free. You can go to this website, you type in your home address, your work address, your friend's address, type in anything you want, and it will tell you at that address, are you in a car-dependent neighborhood, a somewhat walkable neighborhood, or are you in a walker's paradise? So with the help of my team, we thought we'd just take a walk around Grand Forks and see what the walkability is. Here we are at the Empire, which is an 82, which if we go back to that score, that puts us into the very walkable. You could do most of the errands on foot if you were living in the neighborhood here. So there we are. That's exciting. UND out on the campus scoring a 63 in the center of campus. Columbia Mall 52, and they get points for being able to do the stuff inside the mall. Going to the different stores in the mall give them some points, but it's still just barely above automobile dependent. And look at that beautiful concrete. And And the one thing I say, I don't want to pick on the mall. You have a fabulous mall here. It drives a ton of business from Winnipeg and from Canada. We have a great mall in Fargo, drives a ton of business. That's fantastic. But in the video, they talked about when you're trying to sell your community, I mean, you sort of got a mall, check. It's undifferentiated. The same stores are there as they are in some other city, they're in some place. The way you differentiate a city is by the downtown area, and so that's an important thing when you're trying to recruit talent. The Alaris Center, 37. Now I know there's new construction going on around this, but it's interesting. I think the Alaris Center was built around 2000, and I don't want, again, criticize that decision. I built Great Plains Software on the edge in the 1990s when I wasn't as smart as I am now, and Great Plains Software still gets a score close to the Alaris Center, and there are almost 1,800 people coming, and now it's the Microsoft campus. There's 1,800 people that work every day on that campus with tons of new construction and development and beautiful stuff going on there. There's not a single restaurant that those employees can walk to from that location. And so again, it's this, you build on the edge, build it and they will come, and then people don't come, or they come 20 years later. There's not really good return on investment for infrastructure that lands on the edge. And anybody would tell you today, we're having this debate in Fargo about where to put the convention center, Fargo Dome or downtown. Any consultant that's done these in other cities would say, you squeeze them into the spot where people think they can't fit, you put them into the most walkable neighborhood, and you'll get your highest return in terms of private investment stimulated and return on the public dollars that are spent if you could squeeze them into the tightest spot. This is the new South Middle School here. This is again, there's a linkage here. I don't know which kids are walking to the school. I don't live in Grand Forks, but I'm guessing that based on that, the driveway and the drive-offs and all the things that are there, junior high kids, these kids are all being driven to school and being dropped off versus walking or riding a bike. And just so people don't think we're picking on Grand Forks downtown, we've got it up to an 89. We want to get up into the 90s. If we keep getting more services downtown, like a grocery store and some other things, we can push this number up into the 90s. But again, just to think that it's not just your school district. This is where my daughter is a senior in high school. In Fargo, the new Davies High School with a 0. And this school she's been going there, opened her sophomore year, so this is her 3rd year there. And this is a little older Google photo, but that's a current walk score, still 0. And to get a 0, that means within 1 mile you can't even buy a candy bar. That means there is 0 anything within 1 mile of this thing other than residential. Homes don't count. Walking to a neighbor's house doesn't count on the walk score because that's part of that whole single-use thing. But this is an exciting number. I haven't done it for the whole state. I am thinking that Central High could have the highest walk score of any school in North Dakota. I mean, it's a block away from here. You guys ought to applaud yourself, but I'm sure somewhere, sometime, somebody said, hey, let's close that thing down and move it to build a new one on the south side, or maybe that's gonna come in some debate. And all I would say is, please don't do that. You got a generation of kids that are figuring out, how to get downtown, how to park downtown, how to walk and shop downtown, and it's a wonderful thing that you've got that high school there. It's an asset, and you ought to fight to keep it and wear it proudly. So workforce, attract and retain talented people. This is a challenge in any business ever to be able to do this. This is particularly a challenge now when there's so many jobs available in North Dakota. I'm not sure the numbers in the 2 counties up here, but right now in Cass and Clay County, there's a record number in my lifetime of over recorded. Some numbers are saying 63, others are saying 82, but 8,200 jobs available in the Fargo metro area. That is a huge number of things. So then one of the ways you get kids to come there is you get more people coming to the universities. The universities increase their enrollment, and you get more kids coming and then more kids staying. This, of course, is right off the UND website, and guess what they have on their website when they're talking about Grand Forks? They're showing a picture of downtown. They're not showing a picture of the campus. If you go home tonight, look at Concordia's website. Bunch of kids having a good time in this little, pub with a brick, siding and stuff. That's in downtown Fargo. Look at MSUM in Moorhead. Look at their website. Picture of downtown Fargo. Look at NDSU's downtown Fargo. So it doesn't matter what side of the river you're on. To be a college town these days, you have to sell a downtown, an exciting downtown core is the hook that's getting kids to come. And so whether it's getting someone who is a veteran professional, if it's all true trying to recruit a doctor, if it's UND trying to recruit a professor, or if it's UND trying to recruit a student, downtown is the differentiated piece that sells the community. And so if you're sitting in this room and your business and your assets are located on the edge, and you've got somebody that you're trying to recruit, I'm just betting that when you do that and you're trying to recruit an executive, you bring them, you find Kim Holmes, you call, you get a good table, you take them to Sanders. That's what you do. That's what everybody in Fargo is doing. Everybody in Fargo is they will bring them downtown and say, that's the town you want to be in. So a differentiated core is key to solving our workforce problems. And then you say, well, but people want a big yard. Well, let's look at the national data. This is 2013 National Realtor data. First time, ever, really, since the whole suburban trend started. There's, where everybody else said, what do you want? I want the thing on the edge where I want a bigger yard. Well, now people are going, well, maybe I don't want a bigger yard because that means more mowing and more driving. And when my kids are teenagers, I need a car for myself and for my spouse, and I need one for every teenager I have. And pretty soon your 3-car garage isn't big enough. And then the millennium generation is going, I don't want a 3-car garage with a house attached. I don't want a dream house. I want a dream neighborhood. And so part of the dream neighborhood is we're going to forgo the larger yard if we can live within walking distance of schools, stores, and restaurants. 60 people would favor a mixed-use neighborhood that requires less driving. Because once you get into the opportunity to drive less and get unhinged from doing that, you understand how great it can be. And then the other piece for cities, if you're trying to get where we want to get to with a shortage in the workforce, it turns out that denser cities are more productive. And this is a social study that was done, Journal of Regional Science. It is about the number of interactions that occur when people have a chance to bump into each other, having lunch at noon or doing this, as opposed to we're isolated between I work here and I never run into anybody else other than the people I work with. And so this is what happens in cities is the creativity that goes with the creative class does better when they have more interactions. Okay, so that was health, workforce, and economics. And then very rapidly, I want to just say that's sort of the foundation for why you need a vibrant core. And then let's quickly zip through and talk about what, if we're competing. If Grand Forks is competing for talent, Fargo's competing for talent, we're trying to fill these jobs, we're trying to recruit students. What's going to take for a city to win in the next 20 years? Well, certainly a vibrant downtown matters, but then there are layers on top of that. Let's take a look at those. One is, again, respecting the history and heritage. That certainly is happening here in Grand Forks with the construction that's going on. Designing walkability, that's an obvious one. Leveraging the government that is here. It's great that again, government is one of the pieces that can come to the core. In Fargo, we had an actual consideration that maybe City Hall was going to move to the edge in the last 12 months, but now there's agreement that City Hall is going to be rebuilt in downtown Fargo. Embracing the arts, which again is happening here. There's a great quote from the mayor of Toronto that talked about it's arts and culture that make people fall in love with a city, and I think that's certainly the case again when you've got doing whether it's visitors or residents to have them want to keep returning. Retail has been expanding in downtown Grand Forks, but when some of our tours today, when we talked to people, they said, what would it be great? They said it'd be great if there was even more retail. And in the video, they talked about, again, local and owner-operator people. If someone's gonna come for a convention purpose, they do the surveys of people that do convention visits to cities, and then when they go to that city, they don't want to go to the same store that they can go to at home. They want to have something that is unique to that location, a unique restaurant, a non-chain restaurant, and a non-chain store. And so these entrepreneurs that are doing things that are unique to your city need to be embraced and supported because they're on the edge of creating differentiated for everybody else. Everything else that you have is just a ticket to play. These folks ought to be celebrated every day. It's fun to see on a national list of college towns that both Grand Forks and Fargo are on the list. But again, we have an opportunity to bump ourselves up, keep moving up that list. In particular, I felt after the Bison won in Lawrence, Kansas last year, we should have just moved up ahead of that one automatically. But but you know, this is, I guess this is over, you know, by Ramos guys, I think maybe is where this is. I'm not sure, but it's you know, anyway, a lot of good things happening. But you know, bring it on. If you see somebody playing in a street musician, you know, our big city, you know, our small town, big city, whatever it is, might say, hey, let's just walk by. This is really uncomfortable. You know, give them a couple bucks, encourage them to come back. I mean, being eclectic, you know, Austin has made a whole, has built itself around being weird and being different and supporting the people that are doing something that's a bit odd. So again, you got to embrace the edges of stuff that's sort of the non-traditional North Dakota behavior to help create that differentiation. Again, this is out at the university, embracing the arts, inviting visitors. I had a chance, I was up here with the Kilbourne Group basketball team a couple weeks ago for the Grand Am, and you know, what was there? You know, 100,000 players in town. I don't know. You know, couldn't get into a restaurant. You know, couldn't barely get a hotel room. I mean, it was, you know, I mean, Grand Forks does an amazing job with visitors. I mean, just an amazing job. You ought to congratulate yourself and all the events and things that are happening on it. It's a really fun place. You know, to be a visitor. In terms of invigorating downtown living, there's a lot of that's been going on. Both, you know, I think this warehouse apartment thing was actually done in '96, so pre-flood. You know, this is some new stuff that JLG put up recently. So that's all good. I think you'll find if you have more housing units downtown, you'll have more people coming down. It's one way to get density up. Even better if you're able to do this stuff and make sure that you've got, you know, space for retail below to keep those mixed uses going. This is a shot from a project we did in downtown Fargo. Again, Ramos guy is one of the leaders, you know, tackling that rooftop deck. Again, if the city can figure out a way to be supportive of people doing stuff on rooftops, this is on a condo building. It's a condo and retail on grade level, parking underneath. The retail levels, underground parking, retail and condos, rooftop deck, and then this was the first project that we, it's like a demonstration project for what a rooftop could be like, and it ended up being featured in both the Wall Street Journal and in Dwell magazine. And then again, supporting healthy living. We toured today. One of the stops we made was over at Amazing Grains. They're doing a fabulous job over there for all of their owners and non-owners. You know, this is something that's, you know, that everybody wants in downtown Fargo. A grocery store in downtown Fargo to support those 4,400 people that were there. I asked them when they were coming to downtown Fargo. They said they're expanding here, not coming to Fargo. So anybody here that wants to start a grocery store in downtown Fargo, check in with me afterwards. Engaging the community, whether the arts and everything. We had, again, the tour of the Greenway today and all of the opportunities between the city and the Park District and the trails that are going on there. Enlivening the river front. I mean, again, this is a great opportunity for the cooperation with the two cities, because East Grand Forks, what they did with the lower flood wall and the activity that goes over there by the Blue Moose and others when people are, you know, summertime and partying and on the decks. Again, you know, making sure that people are embracing the river. I understand you're bringing kayaking and other adventure type stuff, even, you know, paddleboard yoga. Everybody try it. It's, you know, the perfect thing to do on the red. And so we'll, and you could do it today, extreme paddleboard yoga in the middle of an ice flow. That could probably make headlines somewhere. So we have, but anyway, a lot of good things going on there. Some of the pocket park stuff that you've done has been fabulous and great. I mean, this is something that we need to do more of in Fargo. One of the fun projects, there was a group of 20-somethings that got together. It wasn't they had support of the Downtown Community Partnership. They had support of the police department. They got all the support, but this was a semi-rogue group that just said, we're gonna commandeer an alley, transform it overnight. This was a dumpy, awful little alley. In 48 hours, they cleaned it up. They strung the lights. They hired a band and had, you know, arts and crafts and makers there, and transformed this little space that no one had ever given a second thought to into a you know, kind of an Italian plaza for one evening. And again, it helped people think about the spaces in between. And there's a terrific book recently written called "The Spaces in Between," if you're thinking about creative things to do with the stuff between buildings. But I guess it's also important, again, this is an urban set of design, because you've got the spaces in between. I mean, so often, even like the new city hall that's being built in downtown Fargo is going to have, you know, apparently the mandatory ribbon of 20 feet of grass around it. And it baffles me because that's the same kind of building you could pick up and put on the edge. I'm glad it's I'm glad it's being built in downtown Fargo, but you wouldn't look at one of these older historic buildings and go, how come there isn't grass next to it? You'd go, hey, there ought to either be a building in that slot or there ought to be some other activity in the slot, and getting comfortable with the urban dimensions and how people just love the feel of being in between these buildings. Inviting families is also a fantastic thing if you want to broaden it out. It's not just about college kids that are down here on a Friday or Saturday night. It's, again, around the clock. We were surprised to find with some of the housing units we built in downtown Fargo that once we got up above a certain price point of more higher scale, we did have what I'd call anticipatory empty nesters. Somebody that had 2 or 3 kids, 2 of them are out of the nest. I'm going to, instead of waiting till the last one goes before I sell my big house on the edge, I'm moving downtown when I've still got, a junior or senior in high school. We ended up with one building that had 16 condos in it, and 3 of those had, to our surprise, 3 of the units ended up with people that had high school kids in them. Reinforcing the neighborhoods. I picked up this, the North End News when I was here. This is done in collaboration with some grant money and from the university, but this was again fun to see that there's a neighborhood with its own sense of let's communicate about what's happening in our neighborhood. The downtown, launching this today, exciting to be here as part of the kickoff. Again, another way to think of downtown as a neighborhood and strengthening that. And then the programming. This was, TEDx, which happened here at the Empire earlier this year. Again, fantastic. We've got a group of people in Fargo called Emerging Prairie that is tackling all kinds of programming that just keeps bringing in young people and ideas. And whether it's Startup Weekend or TEDx or the Misfit Conference or the Arts and Crafts and Makers Fairs that we're having, or arts programming, the programming that goes on inside the building is not just enough to save the building. You have to have the active programming to get people that are excited about it. Upgrading the infrastructure. This is something that has to be done in both Fargo and in Grand Forks. We're both in a very similar situation where we've got Xcel Energy as the primary provider for power in the core areas. If you go out to the new stuff on the edge, all the stuff is underground and buried. The switching networks are better because it's all new upgraded infrastructure. In downtown, maybe you picked up some new infrastructure after the '97 flood. Fargo, we're still living with the 1920s infrastructure. And if you're trying to attract software companies into your core downtown area, then you not only need to upgrade the infrastructure and possibly bury these power lines, but you also have to figure out a way to get high-speed internet. And we've got the state surplus that we have. If there's one thing we should be doing, obviously we got to repair roads and make roads safe and take care of infrastructure in the Bakken, but part of that money should be spent in conjunction with creating opportunities for the private companies that are delivering this thing to make sure that we end up with the best internet in the country. If we want to have job creation here in North Dakota, one way to do that is to adopt a goal to be a gigabit. Every city like Grand Forks, Bismarck, Fargo, Minot ought to say we're going to be a gigabyte city, as opposed to running around at 10 megs and somebody telling you, oh, we can get you to 100 maybe. We're talking about stuff that needs, when Google did this in Kansas City, the stuff they put in one neighborhood was 127 times faster than what was able to be provided, and instantly what happened was the housing prices went up, because it was an unintended effect. Software companies came in and bought residential houses and just moved into them. And that was what they were really looking for. But it is a magnet for talent if you can have the highest internet. And we will draw talent to our state if we can do that. We launched something called the Dakota Fiber Initiative last fall. And so if anybody wants to participate in that, talk to us afterward. We'll help you get hooked up to that statewide initiative. Attracting universities. This is a game plan opportunity for downtown. It'll take time, but this is, again, sharing the game plan that we use to help kickstart downtown Fargo. This is Berry Hall. And of course, the Berry Foundation has been very generous. They've made even a larger donation to UND, but this was insurance company building that was downtown that was abandoned. Now it's the College of Business. This is the first Kilbourne Group project, Renaissance Hall. This was a building that was going to be knocked down, 70,000 square feet of turn of the century Richardsonian architecture, built with old growth timbers from the Pacific Northwest. A fabulous building. The wrecking ball was poised to knock this thing down. The building was saved. It was after it was saved and repaired in collaboration with NDSU, it became the new architecture and landscape architecture offices. This was the beginning of NDSU coming into 3 buildings. This is another one. So now of the 14,500 NDSU students, 4,500 of them are coming down every day to downtown Fargo. Another set of permanent jobs with the professors and administration working downtown. And then the bus system. This is the biggest boost ever to the busing system in Fargo because the Green Line, it runs back and forth between the campus and downtown. And that, in my mind, has improved the real estate prices on everything along the line between those two, and more people are able to leave their vehicles at home, ride the bus either to downtown, ride it to campus. It's working well. So what's the plan for, this is the missed opportunity for Grand Forks. My understanding is the state authorized, budget dollars. There's a new law school being built on the campus. What do we have downtown? We got the county courthouse, we got a federal courthouse, we got the city, we got a bunch of law firms. Law students are not people that need to live on campus or go to work on campus. This would have been a perfect opportunity for those state dollars to have been building a law school downtown. So getting universities to understand that they have a role in helping with the urban core as well is something that I think we can all keep working on, as opposed to continuing to go to the edge. If this had not, this Berry Hall thing almost ended up almost out by the airport, as opposed to ended up coming downtown, saving multiple buildings and revitalizing a neighborhood. Retaining civic entities, Fargo Public Library, new one was built downtown. I understand there's a debate here about where the library should go on the edge or downtown. I'll let you guess where I think my vote would be on that one. And then on And then in addition to the restaurants driving activity in downtown Grand Forks that help change the face of what people think about the community. Hotels can also do that. I understand there's some discussion about a boutique hotel, but you can't underestimate the impact the Hotel Donaldson has had on changing visitors' minds about what Fargo is like. Because if you stay here and have this experience versus if you stay at a hotel on the edge in downtown Fargo, or stay on the edge of Fargo, because anything on the edge is basically a franchise, undifferentiated. It's like staying at any other franchise thing, and it's unmemorable. You can't even remember, where did I stay when I was in that town? Where this is, it creates memories, and so part of what you have to do, they've also got a rooftop deck here that's been very popular as well. So again, it's about differentiation in the core. Adopting bike share is something that many cities have done, and it's certainly with the topography of Grand Forks and Fargo, meaning flat. This is a perfect place to do that. We are finally over the hump. We've got the bikes have been ordered after 3 years of tremendous work by the NDSU student body to build this into their student activity card and helping pay for this. So every NDSU student is going to be able to swipe their activity card, pull a bike out, ride between the campus to the downtown campus and back. We hope to get MSUM and Concordia involved next year. But this is, again, when people are saying, what about parking? Part of what you do about parking is you get more people walking and riding bikes, and you solve all kinds of issues with parking. So to close out on this thing, this is kind of a long, a way of saying a challenge to all of you, but it's important to remember that a community isn't just buildings and it isn't just elected officials. A community is the experience that someone has when they come to the community is made up of all of over the course of a year. If you got 50,000 people and hundreds of thousands of visitors, there's millions of interactions which occur between all of those individuals, and they can either be positive or negative. Sometimes they're called the moments of truth, when you're passing someone on a highway, checking someone into a hotel, taking care of them in a retail service thing. But that is what creates the memory for people, and so everybody in this room has an opportunity to contribute to the perception and the reality of what Grand Forks metro area is as a community. Everyone has a responsibility to do that. And it's those little things that can make or break a community. And there's such a great start because these communities as a whole and by nature were a friendly, welcoming set of people in North Dakota, and people come here and are amazed at sort of, wow, the people and whatever. So we can build on that, and in addition to everything else we do in these downtowns, we can really do some things when we get the elements in the vibrant downtown and you add the people that we have that are here, it's truly going to be an unstoppable force. And so I just want to say at the end, I'm thrilled and grateful to be here to kick off the downtown day here at Grand Forks. We want to share, again, everything, all the mistakes and all the learning we've had at the Kilbourne Group, because we're cheerleaders for North Dakota, we're cheerleaders for vibrant cores in every city, and so we're an open book on what we've done in terms of our mistakes, and we're excited to share our successes and our learning. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks very much.
Well, I hope you're all as inspired as I am. Thank you again for coming. Thank you again to Doug Burgum and Kilbourne Group for sharing this day with us. I want to thank Jamie Lunsky and his team at HB Sound and Light for making this look incredible. Thank you to Emily Berkman and the Empire Arts Center for letting us transform the space. We love having this art center in our downtown. And again, thank you all for coming. We hope to see you out in the lobby. Have a great rest of the evening, and let's have a win in the hockey game. Let's go. Thanks.